Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I really appreciate you joining us today. And I'm super excited to have Michael Fricano here joining us from Hawaii. He's a K through 3 computer science teacher and technology integration specialist, but I'll let him introduce himself. Michael?
Hi, everyone. Aloha. My name is Michael Fricano II. I'm a K6 tech integration specialist, but I also teach K-3 technology classes. Next year, I'll be a K-6 technology teacher. Super excited about that. We're expanding our program. But I teach at a K-12 private school on Oahu called Iolani School. And then super active on social. I love connecting with other educators like we're doing today. Thanks for having me today, Lauren.
Of course, and thanks for coming. And my name's Lauren.
Yeah, of course.
Haven't met me yet. I lead marketing here at Unruly. I'm super excited to have you guys here today with us. And feel free to chat us as well throughout. If you have any questions or anything like that, just let us know or throw them in the Q&A as well. All right, so first question today, and I want to pose this to Michael, but also to everyone here as well. How's your job changed over the last 2 months? You know, what's different and how have you adjusted to it? I know there's been a lot of different changes, so yeah, what's that like?
It's been exactly the same. Nothing's changed. No, I'm just kidding. A lot has changed. I think a lot has changed for everybody. Yeah, I mean, at my school, we're pretty much fully online, synchronous and asynchronous. So it's, you know, I'm a teacher at my school. I'm also the PD provider. I'm the IT support. So I feel I wear many hats and fill many positions. So it's been you know, fast-paced learning for me. We use Zoom at my school, so it's been learning how to use Zoom, learning how to train teachers and students how to use Zoom, teaching families how to use Zoom. And then you know, we use Seesaw and Google Classroom as our sort of our class management tools. So it's been getting everybody on board with that. We've been using those tools already, so that wasn't too much of a learning curve. But we've had to increase the usage of those tools and be more creative with how we use them. So, excuse me, sorry. Yeah, so it's just been providing a lot of support, being very patient, and just adapting on the fly.
It seems like from some of the student activities that you've sent me, the students seem to be adapting pretty well to the technology. They're very savvy with their iPads. So
yeah, I think in general, I mean, the students we work with, they've been born into this. So it's, you know, it's already been a part of their life since they've been babies. But and you know, not every student adapts as easily. There are a few students that struggle and have those challenges, and it's just trying to, you know, be a strong support role for those students. But for the most part, yeah, most students have adapted pretty well.
That's good to hear.
But it's not the same for every school, for every place. It's always unique and different.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we were talking about sort of what your day looks like, and can you say a little bit about how you're meeting with your students and connecting with them, and are your classes sort of all at one time, or how does that work?
Yeah, sure. So I'm referred to as a specials teacher. So we have, you know, specials classes like PE, music, religion, dance, technology, and typically in a regular school schedule, we see our students on a 6-day rotation. I see them for about half an hour. Now that we're in online or distance learning, it's seeing them less because we don't want them in front of a screen all day, every day. So it's definitely seeing them on a much less, but I think I see them about once every 2 weeks for about 15 minutes. But a lot of what I do now is mostly asynchronous. So it's providing them video lessons and instructions through either through Seesaw for me, and supporting them in that way. And then sort of doing some catch up and some follow up through my 15-minute Zoom lessons.
Nice. And we'll go through some of those activities that you did in a,
yeah.
Let me see. So, awesome.
I'm curious what others are using for class management tools or video conferencing tools that are watching this webinar.
Yeah, write us in the chat. Are you using a specific tool like Seesaw, Nice, Maria that's using? I've heard definitely a lot of Google Classroom. My sister actually, who's the grade 2 teacher in Vancouver, said I think they were using Microsoft Teams because of security.
Teams, yep.
They have their all of their servers, I believe, are in Canada or the US.
Interesting.
Nice. No Zoom.
It's
Yeah.
a few of you. Awesome. Sharing. I'm not sure. I've never heard of ClassKick. I'll have to look that one up. Who mentioned ClassKick? Was that Tyler? Yeah, Tyler. I'm not sure. I've never heard of ClassKick before. I'll have to check that one out.
Phone calls. Nice. Google Classroom. Yeah, I've heard Loom before, which is great. Class Tag. That's a new one. And Shobi. Huh. I heard that one. Nice. Very cool. So I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts and yours too, Michael. How do you think classes will look in the fall? I sort of mentioned that a lot of principals, have different ideas of what it'll look like, but we're still kind of waiting to hear what the guidelines are for every state. So what do you think it's going to look like?
I think it's going to look. I think it's going to look like sort of a blended model of physical in-school instruction and distance learning. I think like at my school, that's what we're looking at. Like we're prioritizing having kids come back to campus next year. On top of that list is our K-3 students. We think it's really important that we bring those kids back because they need the most support. They're the least independent. But what that looks like on a day-to-day basis is gonna look very different. I think we're looking at required masks, possibly required face shields, social distancing in place in terms of class and how often kids move around campus, things like that. I think like for us, it's also going to be a parent choice to not allow their kid to come to campus if it doesn't suit their family. Because maybe they have somebody who's got compromised immune system, or they're just still fearful. So we're going to have to be able to support those families that make that choice or that don't have a choice in sending their kid to school. So I think it's something to look like a blended model. We're going to have kids in school for physical instruction, and we're going to have kids that are going to continue distance learning. And I don't know if the schedule, we haven't really decided on how the scheduling might work, but I don't know if it's going to be like a day on, day off kind of thing, because we can't have 20 or 30 kids in a classroom at a time. It's going to look very different.
Yeah, I like Tyler said, hoping for the best, prepping for the worst. I think that's a good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think like for us, we're already starting to talk about what PD we can provide at our school, and our focus is helping teachers just get everything online, right? And because I think if we prepare for I wouldn't call it the worst, but if we prepare for the assumption that we can do everything, remotely or digitally, then whether we have to support kids physically in class or through distance learning, we'll be more prepared for that because we have the tools in place. And not try to avoid taking those steps backwards, back to when, before all of this.
Yeah.
You might get stuck.
Absolutely. I think one silver lining is that we'll all be way more prepared for, things like this.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we sort of covered this a little bit, but curious, what tools do you use to teach computer science virtually? You mentioned a couple, Seesaw. What else?
Yeah, so I teach K-3. So K-3, we use Seesaw as our sort of classroom management, assignment management tool. We were using it before school closure, and it's just become a really important tool now, more important than before. But for computer science specifically, I use code.org. I see a bunch of you mentioning that. I use a lot of code.org, some of the unplugged. I've been working on converting a lot of the unplugged activities to distance learning and being able to have kids do it through Seesaw. I use Splats, of course. I've been using a lot of the virtual Splat activities that the team's been putting out. We'll share some of those examples. And then in my third grade, I use a tool called CoSpaces EDU. It's an AR VR creation tool, but it's got a coding aspect built into it that allows students to create interactive experiences for others. Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Somebody else said Discovery Ed Tools. That sounds great.
Yeah, Discovery Ed just put out a whole coding curriculum, I believe. I haven't had a chance to take a look at it, but I'm really excited to see that.
All right, so I know many of you had said that you were interested in learning how to use virtual splats, but hadn't tried yet. So I'm just going to quickly walk through how you can explore that and do that on your own. And then Michael's going to go through a couple activities that he's done with his grade 2 class using virtual splats. So there's our Unruly cat mascot. No splats, no problem. So the only thing that you need to do virtual splats is either an iPad with the latest operating system, or a laptop with a Chrome browser. And if you're using the laptop option, you will need internet access since you'll use Splats with our web app. With the iPad, you do not need internet access. And you do not need physical splats either to use this. And you'll definitely need an unruly attitude. Unrulier the better. We've got a couple activities that definitely require some unruliness. So how do you get there? If you're going to access it through an iPad, just go to the App Store and search Unruly Splats, and it should show up there. And then you download it and you can get started. And if you're using a laptop, you'll want to put app.unruly-studios.com into your browser. I'll also copy that into the chat. And then that's going to take you through a series of questions. It'll ask you if you're a student or a teacher. And the only thing that's differentiated there is if you put student, it's not going to ask you for your email address because we don't collect student information. And you'll make a profile. And so that profile data is stored to your laptop. But that's it. So if you use another laptop, then it's going to be a totally new profile. And I'm just going to write that in here for anybody who wants to check it out. And then you just get to explore, and you'll see on the side panel there that there are virtual splat tray, and then those are what the virtual splats are. All right. So this is where I'm going to hand it off to Michael. He's going to go through 3 computer science activities for elementary students. He did them specifically with his grade 2s, but I think they definitely be appropriate depending on your student's level for grades 1 to 3. All right, Michael, did you want me to play the video first?
Sorry. Oh, yeah, let's play the video first. Go ahead.
Okay. All right.
So this is the first Splats activity I did in distance learning. We already started working with Splats earlier in the school year, back in December. So my kids already had experience, a little bit of experience. So it made it easier transitioning Splats into distance learning. But I did the Splats Relay Challenge. Go ahead.
One second.
Oh, yeah, I hate that little black box that appears. Yeah. Always gets in the way.
Can I exit it? Oh, there we go. Some technical difficulties here.
It's all right. Oh, oh, there we go.
So I'll do it one more time.
Sure. And I'll explain. Probably needs more explanation.
This was a hard one. Even when I looked at it, I was like, "Ooh, that's tough."
Yeah. So what I did here, and we actually did an example of this back in school before we closed, but after the students learned how to use the Splats, we went through the really great tutorials that are built into the Splats app on the iPad. After they worked through those tutorials, what I challenged them to do was I created a Splat Relay Challenge game. So I programmed my own Splat Relay Challenge. And then I played the virtual version using the virtual Splats on the side there and showed them, but I didn't show them the code. Right? So I wanted them to apply what they know and apply what they see and try to recreate the program that I made and make it as accurate to my version as possible. And so that was, we did an example of that in school, but then when we started distance learning, I did another example, the Splats Relay Challenge, where I recorded a video of me playing the program so they could see it, they could see what's happening, they could listen because there was some sound involved. You know, hopefully they noticed that something was happening to the stopwatch at the top as well. And then their challenge was to recreate my program and then share it with the rest of the class.
I love
it
this.
looks like sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I love this one because it's so simple, but it is challenging. And I think often the first step with anything like this is to get the kids to write down what's happening,
Yes.
just on a pen and paper, which is super helpful,
Yep.
even if it's out of order, because then they'll be able to test it. And that's what's great about virtual splats is they're super good for testing out your code.
Yeah,
you can,
quick testing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one's really fun.
Can I share my screen really quick?
Yeah, let me exit out of here. Stop share.
Cool. I'll show you. I'll show all of you what it looks like on in Seesaw. Excuse me. Let me see here. Do this one. There we go. So this is the Seesaw activity that I created for this challenge. So you know, I embedded the video. Right, this is the video that they watched. Right, same one. So it shows them. Can you hear the sound?
I can, yes.
Are you hearing? Okay, cool. Wasn't sure if I turned this sound on. Right, so they watch it, see what's happening, and then try to recreate it. So I gave them their directions. I gave them a few hints and tips just in case they get stuck. Right, like, you know, you can rewatch it again if you want to. And then actually because it's in Seesaw, I gave them a template to help get them started. So wait, oops, let me. Where's my? Oh, here we go. Let me back up here. Oh, that's right. I archived it. Shucks, I can't add a. Hold on, let me show you my template.
We're getting a tour of Seesaw.
Sorry. Yeah, I want to show you what the template looks like. So I didn't just you know, show them the video and that was it. I gave them like a starting point. So I gave them this template. So I showed them these are the blocks that I used, but they're not in any particular order, right? So I gave them a little bit of a lead in, right? Some help, and so they had to take what they saw, but take what they watched, take what they see in the template, and then build the program. And then part of the challenge was once they built it, I wanted them to actually play it, do a relay race and time themselves, and then share their best time with the class to see who could finish the relay in the fastest amount of time.
Nice.
And of course, there's always some students that move through it quickly or want to go a little bit beyond that. So as an extension, I asked those who finished, I asked them, you know, now that you've created my program, what would you change? How could you make it better? Could you add more sounds to it? You know, how could you make it more fun for the user? And so a couple of students went a few steps beyond and made their own version of the relay challenge.
Nice. And that's what's so great about activities like that is that you can do so many add-ons, you know. This one already has a timer in it, but many times maybe there's not a timer in the original activity, and then you can add a timer and add that competitive.
Add a timer. Yeah.
Right, so I'll pop that in. All right. So this is another great one, drum machine.
Yeah, this is part of your musical splats activities. The kids had a lot of fun with the musical splats activities.
Yeah, so why don't you explain a little bit about it first, and then I'll show the video.
Yeah, sure. So I think it was, you guys released like a pack of 3 musical splats activities using the virtual splats. So the first lesson was to make a drum machine. So the lesson activity taught them how to use the play drum block and the delay blocks in order to create their own, basically their own automated drum machine, so they could create their own beat using drums, or they could change up the instruments too. And then for my students, they created their drum machine, and then they screen recorded their program and shared it. And then I think it was the drum machine that we shared with shucks, what's the gorilla's name?
Crash.
Crash, that's right. I forget. Yeah, with Crash the gorilla, and then he made some fun dance videos.
Yeah, so
let's check out this one. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. So this is a submission. I think it's about a minute. I'll only play the first half of it, but I thought it was one of my favorites because she narrates the beginning, and it's just so sweet. You guys can hear.
It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
I can't hear it. When you screen share, can you check the box to share audio too?
Yeah. Let me try again.
Yeah.
All right. I always miss that box. Share computer.
Me too.
All right.
Yeah, so the challenge for the kids were to create their own drum machine following the instructions, and then they screen record their Splat's program playing. But this particular student, she actually narrated. She's definitely like a wannabe YouTube star. So
nice.
she narrated her whole experience, which is really fun to listen to.
Okay, let's try this again. I clicked the button, so hopefully you guys can hear the audio.
Hi guys! So today I'm going to be testing out my Splat drum recording, and I'm going to show you guys what it is and how I made it. Let's test it.
A really good beat.
It is good beat. It definitely gets the head moving. There we go. So that was the challenge. So they could create.
It was the first activity.
Yeah, the first activity, and we said that students who sent us either a screen recording or sent us the code, Crash the Gorilla, would dance to it on video. So we did, and that's all on Twitter if you guys want to check out Crash's dance moves to the beat.
Yeah.
And I think Michael also uploaded because he danced to all of your students' songs, so he made kind of a compilation video, which is fun. So that's still open. So if you guys are interested in trying
share that.
the musical Splats lessons in the last 2 weeks of school and sending us some of your students' code, then we will definitely share a video of Crash the Gorilla dancing, which Crash is our colleague who actually owns a gorilla suit and puts it on and gets to dance to it. So basically the best job ever. All right, so tell us a little bit about your Twinkle Twinkle activity.
Yeah, so the second activity, and what's great is these activities build upon each other, right? So the first was just learning about the drum blocks and the delay blocks, and then in the second musical Splats activity, they learn the block, what was it, set instrument, I believe, the set instrument block, and then they can choose an instrument, and then they learn how to play MIDI notes and how keys on a piano convert to what are called MIDI notes in Splats. And there's a whole like diagram and picture that shows you what the MIDI note numbers are for the keys on a piano or a keyboard. And then the challenge was, and the kids struggle with this, but they actually did they did really well. They had to create Twinkle Twinkle Little Star using an instrument or instruments of their choice, and then the MIDI note. So they were given the MIDI note numbers for Twinkle Twinkle, but they had to build that into a Splats program. So I think this is one example that one of my students did for Twinkle Twinkle.
Yeah, I like this one because they chose a different instrument to use for some of it, but I'll show you guys.
Yeah.
You can hear it. And some students did the full song and other students just did a part of the song, but I thought they were all, it's all cool because they were all unique, even though it's the same song and the same notes, which is what's cool about it. So they can get a little creative.
These are second graders that were working in these. For me, these are my second graders. Yeah, but what I really love about these musical splats is that for the most part, most of the students really enjoyed it. But the students that were musically inclined had a lot of fun with it because it was a lot easier for them to make that connection between the instruments they play, especially if they play piano, and transitioning to programming piano sounds in the Splats program. So those particular students had a lot of fun with it too.
Yeah, and it's so true. It's so rare that you get to have that crossover between music and coding, but this was a fun one. And for those of you who are maybe teaching students who are maybe grades like 5 through 7, this one might be a little bit easy for them, but we also have a Morse code activity pack, which is a little bit more complex, and you get into things like functions and variables. So we definitely encourage you to check that out because these ones are definitely more based towards elementary school. All right, so
and I believe the third activity in there is what was the third? The musical splash. For me, the last activity they're doing is creating a Splats band. That's right, Splats band. So the challenge for my students, the last challenge is to program up to 6 Splats to play different instruments or different MIDI notes, and then DJ their own song with their Splats band program. And then they compose their own music, and then they're screen recording that and sharing it in Seesaw for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, so how it works is the activities not sort of build upon each other, and they're all student facing. So it's something that you would be able to give to your students. And I think a lot of it they can work through independently, of course, with some guidance, but it is the lessons themselves are student facing, which is great. And there's the 3 of these ones build upon each other in complexity. So I think Michael actually you did them in order. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and what I like about the Splats activities is you guys have the PDF, which has some really great screenshots of the blocks and the programs, but then there's also a YouTube playlist of fairly short YouTube videos that walk the students step by step on how to build the sort of like the foundational program, and then there's freedom to change it up. But I'm using those YouTube videos with my second graders, so they're watching that to learn how to build the beginning of the Twinkle Twinkle song, and step by step, and then they're challenged to finish the rest of it. So those YouTube videos and those PDFs are really useful resources.
Oh, awesome. That's good to know. Yeah, we have a team who has fun making those. And if you guys haven't seen these lessons, I'll be attaching them to the email that I send out with this recording as well. So you'll all have access to them. They're free, and you can explore them and see if they'd be a good fit. So I'm curious, Michael, if you have any other plans or activities, planned activities before the end of the year, and sort of what's the plan for the next 2 weeks before school's out?
Yeah, so right now, as I mentioned, for my second graders, they're creating their own Splats band and composing and playing their own music. So I'm excited to see what they come up with in the next week and a half. We have about a week, 2.5 weeks left of school, so they have that chunk of time to work on this. Yeah, we'll wrap up the year with that.
And how about the rest of you guys here at home? Let us know.
What are you planning to do?
What are you guys planning on doing for the end of the year? Are you kind of any new activities? Are you wrapping up? Or yeah, what's the plans? Send us a message in the chat, and make sure you send it to all panelists and attendees so that everybody else can see too. It's always great to get feedback from fellow educators. All right, and in the meantime, Michael, move on to the next question. I'm curious about how you balance creativity with computer science at home for those activities that you got students doing.
Yeah, so I think it's specifically, well, in all the different lessons I do, there's a level of like introduction and the getting started, like in the Splats relay. I wanted them to try to recreate my program, but then there's the freedom afterwards to try to make it your own. You know, how could you make this better? What would you change about my program to make it more unique to your interests? And then it's like with the musical splats, it's, you know, creating a drum machine, but making your own song with that drum machine, or, you know, creating a splats band, but, you know, the freedom of choice for the instruments you want to use and the type of music you want to create. And then they have the option of, you know, making the virtual splats light up when they play their song. So it's not just the music, but, you know, what are the visual aspects of that program as well that'll make it more engaging for others to watch.
Yep, absolutely. The lights and the sounds give them, you know, it's simple, but it actually
yeah.
room for so much creativity, which is great.
Yeah.
So Kathy says they're creating video STEAM challenges connected to science and social studies. That sounds awesome, to spread activities through the summer.
Oh, wow.
There'll be a computer
Cool.
extension activities included. That sounds awesome. Lots of things to keep the students busy, hopefully throughout the summer. All right. And this is a big one that we get a lot for, you know, educators out there who are looking for activities for students to do unplugged. You know, maybe the students don't have devices, or maybe that you want to give them a break from them. Sort of, do you have any tips or advice on activities and how to balance that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, a lot of you mentioned code.org. I use the code.org curriculum with my K through second grade students, and there's some great unplugged activities in there. So we definitely, you know, I've implemented a few in distance learning as well, unplugged activities. Not necessarily unplugged, but like, one thing I love about Splats is the physical fitness connection to it. So it's not just like, I wouldn't consider it unplugged, but it's like, you know, they do some programming, and they might sit in their bedroom or at their kitchen table and do the programming, but always try to implement some type of physical activity with it, like the Splats Relay Challenge, right? So it's build the program, but now you're challenged to go outside and actually implement that program in a Splat relay race with you and your family members. So, you know, really trying to incorporate some of that physical activity, you know, movement, and exercise into it as well, because the splats are great for that. And you may not have real splats, right? But they could, you know, hold their device or their computer and, you know, tap a splat and then, you know, run 10 feet to the tree and then come back and then tap the splat again. So there's still ways to get some of that physical fitness and exercise built in, even if you don't have the real physical splats to do it.
Yeah, definitely. We're actually working on our sneak peek next activity pack. Will be PE focused.
Cool.
Yeah. So we're definitely trying to think of creative ways to still get those calories burned, those, you know, get the sweat worked up, even if you don't have physical splat. So.
Yeah, and then even just to, you know, to get the family involved in it too, right? Or
yeah. Actually, you should
awesome.
tell everybody about what you do. As I think it was your grade 1 class with the students showing their parents the games that they made. I love that.
Oh yeah, that was last year. Yeah, we so the students took a typical exercise, you know, like jumping jacks or relay races or push-ups, you know, things like that, and they were challenged to incorporate that exercise into a Splats program, to make it more engaging and fun, and to do things like, you know, track time or keep track of repetitions, things like that. So they incorporated a real splat, at least one. Some incorporated more, to use the sounds, to use the lights, to use the stopwatch. You can also, there's some scoring blocks in the Splats programming as well, so you can keep track of score or points and things like that. And then typically at the end of the year in first grade, the students invite their parents to school for the day, and they basically take their parents on a tour of a day in their life of a first grader. And one part of that tour was the technology class, and they introduced their parents to their Splats activity and challenged their parents to play their their exercise, and then they actually taught their parents how to do a little bit of programming as well. But yeah, that was a really fun activity, and the kids really enjoyed it, and they got super creative in how they can make, you know, exercise a little bit more fun and engaging for themselves and for their classmates and their family members.
Yeah, I love that. We got to see some photos, and I think one student did a karate chop challenge, which was really awesome, where you had to karate.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, it was like I think he timed it, and then like how many karate chops you could do on a Splats board in a certain amount of time or something like that. Yeah.
Important skill.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so I just wanted to do one last poll here. Let's see if I can actually get the thing coming up. Here we go. I'm curious if these activities would fit with your curriculum, either this year or next year. I'm gonna launch the poll. Hopefully you guys can see it. And if you can't, then just write me in the chat. Yes, no, or I'm not sure. Would you think these activities would fit in with your curriculum? And feel free to let us know too if you have any questions about it, or even ideas on new activities that we should do, or virtual game ideas. We're always, you know, open to that. We love getting game submissions. All right, so I'm going to end the poll.
Cool. 0 no's. That's awesome.
0 no's. Yeah, nice. Yeah, this is great. Great feedback, and hopefully all of you have had a chance to see these activities that Michael shared already, especially the musical Splats ones that I sent out. But if you haven't, then I'm going to make sure to include the link to Michael's Seesaw activity in my follow-up email, as well as the link to the PDF for the musical Splats as well. Awesome.
Cool.
And that's all she wrote for now. I would love to hear what questions you guys have. A couple people had submitted questions before we started the webinar, so I can go over those. But for those of you who are here live, do you have any questions for myself or Michael? Thanks so much for staying. Appreciate your time. Let us know in the chat. So one question somebody wrote to me is tips on getting started with Splats. So if you're brand new, you might not even have physical Splats yet. How do you get started?
Yeah, so what I typically do with my students in first grade, second grade is I use the tutorials that are built into the Splats app. So I don't know, can I screen share really quick?
Yeah, for sure.
Is that okay? I can show you. Sorry, click the wrong button. Share my, yeah, see if I can share my iPad screen. So in the app, there are Unruly tutorials here, and so I use these. So these work really well. They take kids step by step through the process, what blocks to use, and explaining what those blocks do, and teaching them how to test their program along the way. So this has been really helpful. So you just swipe across the top, gives you the first step, using a starting block. And then I swipe, and it tells me what block to use and explains it. And I swipe. So these tutorials are really super useful. So this is the first thing I do with my students, is I take them through. We walk through the first tutorial together, just so I can answer questions and do a little bit more extra explaining, and then the students move through the rest of the tutorials at their own pace. And at some points, like some of them like to stop at the Splat is lava, do that one, and then make the lava game, different and add to it themselves once they learn some things. But yeah, the tutorials are a really good starting point for that.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. Right. And I think we just have one last question here that somebody submitted, which was how to keep students engaged with CS activities from home. So it's hard to sort of connect with students. So even if you don't see them physically, every day or every week, how do you make sure that they're engaged?
I think first and foremost, it's giving them feedback on their work, right? Not allowing the activity to sort of stall out. I mean, I think like here it's it's challenging because like the activities that I give, they have to sort of last 2 weeks, right? So I have a lot of kids that finish early, some kids that struggle that I have to support, give some extra support to, and then challenging them beyond the initial lesson, if they choose to. But you know, it's important to be giving them that feedback along the way.
Yeah.
And then yeah, it kind of ties back into the creativity and choice of the activity, not making it so rigid, and but allowing them some freedom of choice and to express some creativity in what they do with that programming, like giving them the basics to get them started, but then, you know, allowing them to make the choice of, you know, making the splats light up and adding some sound in there and exploring some new blocks, and not keeping them stuck to just using these things that you want them to focus on. But some students will take that and go with it, and others will just, you know, will choose to do what the lesson asks them to do, which is fine. But they have that freedom of choice and that creativity. I think at least for me, for the most part, it keeps most of them engaged and interested in the content.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, giving students the control and the ownership over their game or their activity is a big one. You know, you immediately see, or give them a role. So, you know, if we were, you know, making student groups or whatever, giving every student sort of a role in that group, you know, in that shared task. So a lot of times if there's an activity where there's really complex code, sometimes what teachers like to do is break them into groups, and then each group is working on one aspect of it, and then they get to put it together. So they each get control over their, you know, role in the group, which is, yeah, it gives them some empowerment, which is great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing for now. But this was awesome.
I see another question in the Q&A.
Says, I plan to use the Splat in a 10-week after-school program with grades 2 to 5. What activity would you recommend?
So I would definitely start with the tutorials. Another aspect I love in the app, I'm gonna share my screen one more time, is close this, is in the same place where you get the tutorials, there are also some challenges too. So if you're not sure what might be possible, like me, I mean, I dive into this, and you know, I tell my students, like, I'm not the expert here. You know, this is your tool. You take it and figure it out. Work together. We'll work through this. But there's some really great challenges built into the tool. So like the activity I shared earlier from last year, this was based on the workout challenge. Right. So it's create a workout for you or your family that includes multiple activities, and I think like push-ups, jumping jacks, and that actually, so it gives you an idea, and then you take it and you know, build something out of it. And there's also some really good examples in here based on how many splats. So if the kids aren't sure where to start, like you can start with like the Whack-A-Mole 2 splat game, and it gives you a breakdown of the activity. You can load the example. You can see exactly what that program looks like, and then we've done some of these, and then the kids have added to it and have made changes to it to, you know, make it better or make it different, or if they can think of a different way to play that same kind of game. So there's lots of really great resources and ideas built in to the app. Built into the app itself that would be a great starting point if you're not sure where exactly to start with this.
Those are great ideas. If you do have physical splats, we also have 2 10-packs of lesson plans and activities that will also give you some ideas. So, you know, no need to follow them exactly, but usually what they are is kind of a build up of like, okay, here's the activity and the lesson plan. So there's definitely 10 weeks of content there. And then usually there's always a challenge at the end associated with, okay, now tell your kids, like, how could we change this game? How could we add a different element? Maybe it's a timer, maybe it's different lights and sounds, you know, depending on their level. Yeah, great question. Okay, any other questions from you guys at home? Thanks so much for staying with us. This is great. Thanks, Eileen and Candace and Barbie, Kathy and Keith, Lori, thanks for joining us. If that's all your questions, then I'm gonna officially end the webinar, but I'm gonna stay back another minute or so. If anybody has any lingering questions, happy to answer
Sure.
them. Thanks so much
Thanks, everyone.
Yes, and we'll be sending out the webinar recording along with all the activities that we went over today so that you guys can all try them out at home.
Hey, Keith. I know Keith. Hello, Keith.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thanks, everyone.
Gabriella, thank you so much for coming. Thanks, Santiago. Have a
Thanks,
great
Kathy.
rest of your day, everyone. Thanks, Lori. All right, looks like nobody has any other questions, so I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining.
Alrighty.
Absolutely
Thanks,
fantastic.
Lauren.
Really appreciate you joining us.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for the
Bye.
invite. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Take care.